Good morning, I'm Megan Jax. Welcome to Scrapbook Live. It is the last Wednesday in September already. And so we are going to be putting together some borders today. And I have some Croptoberfest borders. These actually started out as National Scrapbook Day borders, the original designs, which now I'm really realizing I should have grabbed those borders so I could have showed you what they looked like and kind of compared the NSD borders to the Croptoberfest borders. Because the NSD borders were ones I created in 2020, and using the tools that were available at the time, and that cute little strawberry had the greens and the scarlet and the teals in there from that collection. And so now I decided, well, we'll just recreate them as Croptoberfest borders and show how to adapt the tools, how to adapt the overall designs. And really what it was is I really just wanted to play with the orange stripe paper. I don't know about you guys, but I really liked this paper. I think it's fun. We don't always, sometimes it feels, and this is more probably just my perception, that we have a lot of floral and botanical prints, but sometimes the stripes, especially in colors that don't necessarily involve pink and purple, can be a little bit harder to, I would say a little bit less frequent, maybe is the way to say it. So I was excited. I have a lot of layouts that need to have things that are a little more masculine. And this stripe definitely was that way. So that's really what my goal was for these borders, is how to create them. They're going to lean a little bit more masculine, or maybe even just gender neutral with my, because that's the type of stuff I need. We're not a hearts and flowers type of family so much. So having things that go that direction are just a little bit more photo friendly for me and all my layouts that I need. So I'm going to switch over here to the overhead cam, and we'll go through everything you're going to need for today's borders. All right, so here's the borders, the 4 borders that we are creating. And these are all shown, currently they're shown to be in the vertical orientation. However, you can, all of these borders really, because the patterns are, for the most part, are non-directional. The blue, this blue paper that there is owls in it, the tonal blue, there's owls. So they theoretically have a direction to it, but I'm going to tell you right now, those owls are in there so faintly that you won't notice the difference if you rotate it. If you cut your paper one direction, but need to actually use it the other way, you wouldn't notice the difference. The only thing that you would have is you would just attach any kind of title or embellishment, depending on your orientation. I put them all vertical, largely because it was going to work out easier for me when creating the photos that I needed to be able to have for the event itself. Like when I do that square photo that I put on part of my Facebook thing there, I needed to be able to have a photo. When one is horizontal and the other 3 are vertical, or vice versa, it just gets to be a pain in the rear end when trying to show you what to do. Anyway, so here's the 4 that we're creating. What we are going to need, you have a handout. If you are watching this later on Facebook, or excuse me, on YouTube, the link for that handout will be in the description. But here's the handout. It is a 2-page handout. And up here at the top, I list all of the supplies. I am using the Croptoberfest project recipe kit. You can make adjustments as needed. Maybe you're going to be using something different. So what we have is we have a piece of cardstock. The cardstock you do want to be kind of a, I don't want to say a bolder color, but in this particular instance, having it be the darkest color worked out really well. Then we need a lighter paper. So I use the cream paper. The back side of that in the Croptoberfest, I think, yeah, is the owls in the trees. I'm not so much worried about that. Then we're going to use an accent paper, or a kind of a statement print. So in this particular case, the statement print that I'm using is the stripes. In this particular case, it works out really, really well that a beautiful accent color for this is also on the back side, this tonal plaid. So we're going to be using both sides of this piece of paper. And then we're going to come in with this mid-tone blue. So you can actually see we're going to be using 4 colors here: the navy cardstock, the ivory leaf the stripe, the tan, and the dark blue. This is one sheet each out of the Croptoberfest kit, or the project recipe kit, plus the navy cardstock. The other tools that I will be showing you using, we're going to use the rotary trimmer. I will be demoing with the rotary trimmer. I'm going to be using the stamping blade, largely because I don't use the stamping blade a lot. So I thought that would be fun to do. You don't have to use a decorative blade, but you can if you want. So we're going to be using this. I will be using the stamping blade. We're going to use the decorative trimmer. You're going to want to have that available. If you do not have the decorative trimmer, you can just use straight cuts. You can, if you don't have the decorative trimmer, it may adjust things a little bit. And if you don't have the decorative trimmer, then I'm going to tell you right now just to go to creativememories.com and put it on your wish list and get it the next time you order. I just use it so much that I love it. So when I say people don't have it, it's kind of like saying you don't have a 12-inch trimmer. You need the decorative trimmer as well. The other items we're going to be using, I'm going to use the border maker system. So you're going to want to have your border maker system available. And I am using two different punches. Ancient Key, which is still available on the website. All of the tools I'm using today are available on the website with one exception. It's only just a small variation that I'm going to do because I just want to show you how fun it is. In the border number 2, where it says Ancient Key border, I am actually going to be mixing in the Mosaic Diamond because I'm going to tell you right now, if you guys don't have these two to use as a pair, you're missing out. This was a promo punch. Hint, hint, I have lots. So if you absolutely miss this one and you see that you got to have it, send me a message. We'll get you hooked up. But these two pair really well, and I do want to show how that could work as part of this layout. If you don't have Ancient Key, other knockout styles would work fine. Knockout being that it only punches the design. It does not alter the edge of the paper itself. And then if you don't have this, if you don't have a knockout style, or you could use an edge style, you want something that's going to stay attached to your paper. That's probably the biggest thing here. It needs to stay attached to the main body of your paper. That's going to be the best option. Next up, I'm using Mirrored Scallops border maker cartridge. And you could use another chain style. This is kind of an accent one. It doesn't really shine through very boldly. It is actually in this layout, or this border here. You can barely see it, but it does provide a little bit of contrasty detail behind those leaves. So you may be easily able to sub in another punch as well. Then I use two border punches, which are our blue and white punches. I am using River Waves. And I'm using River Waves because I wanted something that was going to work. You can see here's where I used it. I wanted something that was going to come in and be not overly attention grabbing, but have a little bit of detail to it. So River Waves works really well when you just want a graphic design that doesn't really steal the limelight. It's just adding a little bit of texture, a little bit of interest, but your mind sees it and moves on from it because there's just not a lot of interest going on with it. It's just kind of one of those great ones to have just working in the background. And then I am going to be using Leafy Vine. You see it here being used on this one. This layout, we punch a couple borders with it, doing more of a shadow effect. And this one, you could sub in any other kind of chain style. You could come back into your border maker system. You could come in and just use whatever's going to work well. You're going to have about a 1-inch space in here to work in some detail. You may have a sticker. You may have a border, a laser cut border that you want to do. So that is definitely an option or something to think about there. Okay, so those are the tools that I'm using. So to get started, we're just going to work our way one by one through these borders. The first border I have up here is I called the Leafy Vine border. I basically named them on the tools that I used as compared to anything else. So this is just called the Leafy Vine border. So let me just move some of the stuff out of the way, clear out my space. We will need to have our decorative trimmer close by. Our regular trimmer, we the border maker system, not too far. We're going to use, if you're using a decorative blade, you're going to want to have it available because we will use it in this particular design. Putting my samples out of my way. So we need some, we're going to start off with some navy cardstock. I am literally going to try to walk step by step through my directions listed here, because that I think is going to be the easiest. So we're going to start off with step number 1 of the leafy vine border, and we're going to be trimming 2 pieces of navy cardstock to 3/4 by 12 inches each. So I'm starting off with a new sheet of navy cardstock. I came really close to using almost the entire sheet, I think, because with all the punching. So you might need to go ahead and have a full sheet. You can start with scraps and grab additional pieces as you need to. But we're going to start off here 3/4 of an inch. We need 2 of those 2 strips that are 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to come over here, line it up at 3/4 of an inch, and cut. I do have a relatively fresh cutting strip here. When I start projects like this, especially the borders, we're working with a little more detail. I want to make sure I've got a clean cutting mat, a fresh groove to work in. That's going to make sure that I don't have any frayed edges, especially when I start working with the designer paper. So we're going to go ahead and cut those 2 navy cardstocks to 3/4 of an inch each. And then we're going to come over here to our, the blue leaves and owls. Now here is where you do have a little bit of direction to your owls. You'll see on here that there are owls in this paper. They're very faint. We are using just little bits of the paper, as none of the borders have a significant amount of that blue sticking through. It gets covered up, so really it doesn't matter which direction you're cutting it. The back side is the trees with the owl paper, but I think I mostly use up a good portion of this paper, so I'm not too concerned about trying to leave scraps on the back side. So I'm just going to go ahead and start cutting. I need to cut this with a decorative blade. I need 2 strips that are 1/2 an inch each, and I want edges, one edge of each piece should be a decorative edge. Now, I'm using the stamping blade. The stamping blade is directional, meaning that when you cut down the middle with your stamping blade, one side looks different than the other. So if I want both my sides to look the same, I'm going to have to do 2 cuts to get that. So here's how I'm going to handle that, because I'm super lazy. I'm going to put my stamping blade in. Let's reference this. Here's my logo. My logo is going to face to the right. I'm going to come in and I'm going to cut off the edge of this side of my paper. I'm going to establish my stamping edge. Keep ourselves tidy, put that right in the trash. Sometimes I'm terrible about that. Okay, so I've established the stamping edge. This is the edge I want to be on my piece. So I could come in here, I could go ahead right now and switch back to my, well, actually what I can do here is I have the stamping edge here. This edge is going to be exposed on my design. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go ahead and cut at 3/4. I think I said 1/2 an inch, anywhere from 1/2 an inch to 3/4 of an inch. We'll dial it back to that 1/2 an inch, a little bit past 1/2 an inch, I think. And I'm going to cut again. The reason I can do that is this outer edge is the one that's going to be exposed. This edge is going to be hidden. But I don't know if you can tell. They're different from each other. That's what I was mentioning. Stamping, they're different from each other. I want this edge. This piece is going to be covered. Here I've established another stamping edge that matches the edge I want to keep. Now I'm going to pull my stamping blade, come back to my straight blade, and I'm going to cut this at 1/2 an inch. That 1/2 an inch is an estimate. You can make it a little bit wider if you like a bigger piece to work with. Okay. Now, the big thing here is one of these edges will get rotated. So if I was super concerned about my directional paper, I would have to keep that in mind. But here's my pieces. Here's my stamping edge on this outside, and the edge I want to keep is on here on the right. I'm going to go ahead, set my trimmer to the side, and I have us going ahead and adding these to our navy strips of cardstock. And we're going to have it so that we have about 1/8 of an inch on this outside edge. They're kind of going to end up down the middle, but you really want to make sure your outside edges are the same. I'm going to use just my mini tape runner to come down the middle of this strip. You can use whatever adhesive works best for you. And you really just want to make sure it's 1/8 of an inch, 1/16, whatever margin you have on that outside, you just want to make sure that it's even all the way down. So it's just even. This is that outside edge that I'm looking for. You can see my decorative piece there, right? The decorative edge, that's what I want to be able to see. And then we'll go ahead and do the same thing on this other piece. My right edge is the edge that I want to make sure is nice and even. It should match the left edge of this other piece. Now, one of the alternatives would have done is, sometimes we would just cut one wide strip of navy, one wide strip of the blue. The challenge sometimes comes into with this is that it just starts to waste a little bit more paper. And since I was making 4 borders, I wasn't sure as I was cutting through these how much of the blue, this pattern blue that I would use. So I opted to use the strips rather than using a whole big piece, because you could see here, this section in the middle would all just be covered up. So that's like 1 inch to 1.25 inches that I would be covering up. So this makes it a little bit easier. I'm not wasting paper. This outside strip is really a technique that I use a lot. This concept, you can see that it's on the back. So that just saves a lot of paper there. Okay, so I've got those 2 strips. Now we are ready to move on to step 3. We're going to be using our striped paper with our trimmer. Now, if you used your decorative blade, make sure it's been replaced with your straight blade. And we're going to cut a 2-inch piece of the striped paper. I do want to make sure my stripes are running horizontal. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to go ahead. I've got my straight blade in there, cut it 2 inches. Now we're going to go ahead, coming back to our strips of paper here. We're going to adhere those to the back side of my stripe paper. I'm going to use the mini tape runner. You can come in and use the regular tape runner if you want. And I am just going to come down the edge of each one of these sides and put some adhesive in place. And then I'll attach those pieces. The other part, the reason that I like this, the reason a lot of times I do the strips like this is because they're usually something that I will add later. Like I might have designed this without the border outside edges and then decide later, oh, I need something there. So that these just make it really easy to add them on later without using up a ton of supplies. Best way to do this, line up your bottom piece, this outside strip, on your cutting mat. I've just picked any straight line, it doesn't matter. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to line this up. I am giving myself about 1/4 inch. Come here to the top and find that same mark at the top so that the exposure that I have here is even. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to line it up. I'm just going to pick a line there to line up that strip. Come over here with this piece. And I'm going to come in and do 1/4 inch exposure. And that should be even then on both sides. So there we have this is the base building piece for so many possibilities. All right, so now we're going to go back. We're ready to move on to step 4. Remember, we're working with the leafy vine. This is border number 1. We're going to go with step 4, and we are ready to use our decorative trimmer. Quick note about the decorative trimmer. When I am referencing directions to put your paper in, your decorative trimmer should have your swell edge on the right, your wavy edge on the left, and your little arm that can come out will be up here in the upper left, just like most people use their regular 12-inch trimmer. So I just want to make sure that when you're working this and you're reading my directions, this will always be the orientation that your trimmer should be when I tell you to feed in from the right or feed in from the left. So we're going to come back here. Here is my blue leaves and owl paper. And we're going to be putting that into the trimmer from the right side. Okay, we're feeding from the right. Coming in from the right side. And we're actually going to push this paper all the way through until this right edge meets up with the right edge of my trimmer bed. I am going to center. Remember, centering, it comes down one set of squares from the top. It's up one set of squares from the bottom. And then we are going to come in here and we're going to cut with our swell blade. So this is my swell edge. So this is my swell blade, or the blade on the swell edge. The terminology gets to be a little bit, or the swell guide. I can never determine what wording I want to call it. This is the swell edge, the swell guide. I really don't want to call it the swell blade because the blade is a blade. It's this plastic edging that gives us the design. So this is the swell edge cut with that blade. This is the piece that's going to go on our border. This is the piece we want to hold on to. This right here becomes, just goes back into our pile to use on another border. This piece is going to get put on to our border here, and we're going to leave 1/4 of an inch of the stripe showing to the left side. Again, come here and line it up on your mat so that you can find that 1/4 inch. It just helps you get those nice straight lines. All right. Now, the next thing we're going to do here is we need to punch our border. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to, we're going to start with the leafy vine. And I need to punch 2 borders, one with the cream and one with the tan. I am going to start both of these borders right at the black hash mark that's on the front of the guide here. I'm going to start both of them at that mark. You could use any punch. I mean, this is what's nice about this particular set of papers. The owls are a little bit theme specific, but the owls that are in the paper don't really come through too much. So you don't really have to worry about whether or not those match your theme, especially if you're just wanting to use the colors, the pretty oranges and the blues and the creams. So you can adjust this to go with whatever theme your photo is. And then, of course, you would just need to use different embellishments. I've kind of leaning, like, well, I can still use some of the owl embellishments, even if I don't necessarily want to use the owl. I don't want the owl paper to become a focus. So one more border here. We're going to go ahead and come in. Now, I want this to be a shadow. We could offset this piece a little bit and create the shadow just by adjusting where we start our punch. I'm going to tell you right now, I usually mess it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm still going to go ahead and punch here, starting at that hash mark. And then I will show you how I handle that when I need to create a shadow or a little bit of an offset. It's super easy to do. I should have told you in the supplies, you always want to have your scissors handy. I'm just snipping it rather than trying to punch this last little bit. I'm just going to snip it off. So now I've got 2 borders. I'm going to get my little blue mat out here, the silicone mat. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I know that I want the white border is going to be on top. So what I'm going to do is apply my adhesive to the back of the white border, or the ivory, just right down the middle. Lay the tan border on here, and then I will go ahead and I'm going to offset it a little bit. I want that the brown to become a shadow. It is still centered. It's not offset like this, right? I am offsetting right to left. You could offset and do kind of like a, I don't know, offset it to the right and up a little bit, but I'm going to just do right and left. I didn't want to increase the width of my border. I wanted it to just be to show that tan through there. So I'm going to go ahead and I don't know, it's about 1/4 of an inch offset. It doesn't really matter so much that. So I'm going to go ahead and just apply it. Now, up here at the top, you can see I have a little gap there now, right? Oh, this would focus, right? I don't know if my camera's gonna, no, it's not. There it goes. You can see up here, I've got a gap, right? There's no tan there. That piece I need is actually at the bottom. So what I'm gonna do is with my scissors, I will come in here and cut off this bottom piece, whatever's hanging off the bottom, and then keep track of it, don't lose it. I'm gonna come up here to the top, put a little bit of adhesive. This is a pretty small piece. It really depends on the design of your border, how big of a piece it is, and you've got to apply it the right direction. There we go. So now I've got that piece up here at the top. So that's usually how I do it. And I'm not 100% sure that I put it on there correctly, but regardless, I've got a piece of brown there at the top. So when I put my border on here, it will not have this awkward stopping of the shadow. Now I will go ahead and apply some adhesive down the back. And it's just going to be, oh, I missed a step. See, I should pay attention to my own directions. Initially, I was just going to put this on here, but what I've noticed with this entire set is I really, really like the depth that the navy gives to it. So if I just put this on here like this, and I bring it up to show you guys, so that you guys will see a little bit of a shadow, but in person, it just was missing something. And so that's where I thought adding in that navy behind it just gives it a little bit more depth of the colors. We've got the navy on the outside edges, bringing it into the middle, I thought was a nice touch. And it's cardstock, right? Navy cardstock, doing things with cardstock, it's not a big deal to experiment, see if you like it. So I'm going to come over here, mirrored scallops. I'm going to punch 1 chain using mirrored scallops out of navy cardstock. You could totally just come in, you don't have to add it. You could use some other color. You could maybe just come in with even just a small 3/4 inch strip cut out of the wavy trimmer. I don't know, you might want to experiment a little bit if you don't have mirrored scallops to see what you like behind it. Maybe you don't want to put anything back there. So before I put that border on, I am going to go ahead, I will attach my leafy border to the middle of my mirrored scallops. I am just looking to see that I have a good balance on both sides of that, of the scallops, that you can see those through there. Be careful with your leaves. I ran my hand down, tried to strip my leaves off. Backside here, I am going to go ahead and grab, I'm going to use my mini tape runner, and just go right down the middle of this mirrored scallop. And then it will just come right down the middle of this border. Actually, it's not really down the middle. You can see here we have kind of a 1-inch section with the wave, the peaks of that swell sticking up. We want to stick more to the side so that the swells can be noticed. All right, so that is the first border. You can see them there. And I added, you can see there, the birds of a feather flock together. That's an embellishment out of the embellishment pack. I did use some foam squares to pop it off just a little bit, but it does cover that width really nicely. It could also be rotated. Of course, all of the embellishments and the stickers, you could do, you can adjust as needed and use the ones that work best for your photo. So if I was making these borders ahead of time, I would probably just wait to attach them, especially if I didn't have photos or layout I had specifically in mind at the moment. If I was just adding these, going to put these in my sort and stash binder with all my other borders, I might just tuck in my pack of embellishments with these borders and not necessarily worry about where to put them at the moment. Okay, so that's border number 1. Or I guess the leafy vine border. Next up, we're going to use the ancient key border. And this is the one where I do want to show you that we're going to use the, I am going to combine ancient key with mosaic diamond because I think they look fantastic together. And I just want to show you what that looks like. So we'll start off punching some navy cardstock. Now, here is one thing I want to point out. Okay, I just came through and punched mirrored scallops with this. It was a chain style, it breaks away. This edge may look to you just to the naked eye like, oh, we're good to go. It's nice and clean. Here's what I'm going to tell you. It's not. I can run my finger on here and I can feel right there. I've got a little spot where I punched and maybe wasn't even with my punching. Oh, there's another one coming. Oh, there's another one. I need to, rather than leaving in this and punching, remember, mirrored or ancient key does not alter my outside edge. Whatever my edge looks like of this paper is going to stay the same. So if you're moving on from punching a chain border or whatever else here into something like an edge style border maker cartridge, or excuse me, a knockout style border maker cartridge, you've got to make sure you've got a clean edge to your cardstock. So I need to grab my trimmer and reestablish that clean edge. I need to just get rid of all of that unevenness. And now I've got a clean, straight edge with no funky little miss pieces that I can feed back into my trimmer. So that is just a word of warning when you're moving around with your tools is always, you know, keep in mind, knockout styles do not alter that edge. You need to make sure you've got a very clean edge to use. Okay, so I'm going to start off with ancient key. I'm going to punch every other slot. So there are six slots, right? If we think of the slots being those little pieces back there where the cartridge fits in, they are also noted here with the little pieces that stick out on this blue. I've got some, it's hard to see. This little notch there, that piece, that's where each of your slots are. All right, so we have slot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to do the odd slots with my ancient key. So 1, there's 2. I'm going to skip 2, come down to 3. Skip 4, come down to 5. Swap out. If you're using the same one, maybe you're just using ancient key, you do all 6. Or if you're just using mirrored or the mosaic diamond, whatever you maybe would use all 6, or you can practice swapping out and seeing what they look like. So that, I really just adore this. just so you guys can get an idea, that's how those two pair together. All right, so I had one of my customers, or I did this, I don't know if they saw it through the virtual crop, the combination. I can't claim that I figured out that these two pair so lovely together, but I do like to showcase how nice they do look together. Okay, so now that we have gone ahead and we have punched our outside edge, we need to trim this to 2 5/8 of an inch after punching. So I'm going to grab my trimmer. 2 5/8. 5/8 of an inch is just past that 2 1/2. You can go to find your 2 1/2, and you're going to go 2 lines. So one little line is a 1/16, and I come out to another little, the medium sized line, and that is the 1/8 of an inch. 2 5/8. Line, I am double checking top and bottom to make sure I am at 2 5/8. And then I will go ahead and trim. I've got my straight blade in there. I'm going to put my navy cardstock to the side. This piece I'm done with for the moment. I'm going to set it to the side. It's going to wait for the rest of my decorative elements. All right, so now we have just some basic strips to cut out of the paper. Step number 3, we're going to use the ivory leaf paper, and we're going to cut a, oh, I take it back. We need to go to step 2 first, which is the owls. And we need a piece that is 1 by 12. Oh, we're going to back. That's right. I forgot. I back this. We're going to cut a piece that is 1 by 12. So 1 inch wide by 12. And all we're doing is we're putting that piece behind our punched bit here. You just want to make sure you're using, this is the back side. You want to make sure you're going to apply the adhesive on the back side of your This is the back side. I want the blue to show through, so I need to flip it over and apply it. Making sure I'm covering up the windows created by the punch. And now this is just going to protect that, or not protect it, it gives it that nice solid backing so that no matter what paper I put this on, I'm going to be able to see those pieces. So if I do have a little bit of a decorative paper as my base paper, I don't have to worry about the windows getting lost in the design of the overall page. Okay. Now we're ready to move on to step 3, and this is we are going to use the ivory paper, and we're going to go ahead and trim this to 1.5 inches. 1.5. Again, I can see I punched the leafy vine. I've got I can feel that roughness. So I need to, before I cut this side, I need to clean it up. I'm going to trim off just a small amount. Now I have a nice straight edge. Come over here to 1.5. And apparently 1.5 is too big. So I may have a mistake there. Yeah, I've got a mistake on my handout. So you guys are not going to need a 1.5. It should be 1.25. 1.25. So step 3, where it says 1.5, it should be 1 1/4. So 1 1/4 inch. I'm going to see if I can chop off 1/4 inch from my paper here. I think I can do it. There we go. 1 1/4 is going to work a lot better. All right. So 1 1/4 inch. Step 4, I need to grab the tan paper, and I'm going to cut a 1/4 inch strip from that. So the tan paper is also my stripe paper. I'm going to cut a 1/4 inch strip. 1/4 inch is going to come to the outside of that gray cutting mat. Double check, because we did, okay, so here's my rough cut because I punched that leafy vine. I'm going to chop it off. I'm just going to get rid of it. I worry later that I'll forget. I've got that clean edge, come over here to that 1/4 inch and cut. And this, we're going to go ahead and attach this piece to one edge of my ivory piece. It's going to come flush on that outside edge. So let me apply some adhesive. I'm going to use the mini tape runner again. And it's going to go right along flush with that edge, the edge of the ivory paper. Now this whole piece is going to be put on my blue base, my navy base. And for the most part, I want to mirror whatever margin I have on this right side. I want to mirror that margin here on the left of my punch design. So it's going to be roughly about 3/16 of an inch from, if you're using ancient key, it was about 3/16 of an inch on either side. Using mirrored, I can see here with mirrored, mosaic diamond, it's about 1/4 of an inch, just the way mosaic diamond is a little bit more narrow compared to ancient key. Regardless, I want to just make sure it's consistent across here. Use some adhesive. If you want to, grab your cutting mat and let that help you position things. Make sure you put things on your cutting mat straight. There we go. That's going to be definitely much more helpful. Okay. And then next, we're going to jump down to step 5. And we're going to use it's the striped paper. So again, we're coming back to that tan paper, but we're going to use the striped side. And we're going to cut another 1/4 inch piece. And this is going to mount along that bottom edge. And this is where you can mount it flush with the white, the ivory. I ended up actually just mounting it so that I had a nice bit of that navy showing through, but it's not flush. This would be flush, and I moved it over just a little bit. I didn't want that full amount of navy showing. So I'm going to come in here and apply my adhesive using the mini runner again. Yes, I do see the comment asking about the printables. These are, this printable is available on my website. So you can go to megganjacks.com, click on Scrapbook Live, and then it's the most recent Scrapbook Live. So it should be the first one on the list. If you're watching this later and you're trying to find it, the link will be, if you're on YouTube, the link would be in the description below. It'll take you to, it's a free printable. These are based on a previous set of borders that I already had on the blog. So definitely easy enough for you to just print those out. It's a 2-page PDF. Okay, so there's our border. Easy peasy. Very basic. Could go obviously either direction. Horizontal, can go vertical. You can have it from the top. You can make 2, mirror side to side. I went ahead and used some stickers. There's this leaf sticker, and then these moments is a sticker. I used one of the little embellishment tags, and then this little owl is a tag. And of course, you would be able to put these on however works best for your layout. All right. Okay. That was border number 2. That was the ancient key border. Now we're ready to move on to the second page of the handout. Now I call this one hidden key border. And the reason I did so is because we are covering up part of the ancient key. So for this particular border, if you're not using ancient key, but you want to use something similar, or you want to do the same effect, is we're really just wanting a border that will play a bit of peekaboo. behind a piece of paper here. So a lot of borders can play peekaboo like this. I picked this one because it just worked out really well. I was already using it in a previous one and to carry it over through with another one. And then I realized I could just cover up half of it. So you could come in with something like mirrored scallops and just cover up half of that and just have the top part of the scallops peekabooing out the top. So you'll find whatever works for you. Bonus points if you are able to back that so that you can see, gives you a little bit of added contrast there on that element. If you are using something like mirrored scallop, a tip I can give you on this one is you're going to punch 2 borders, one in the main color, a second border in the accent color, and then you are going to shift them, they'll line up and then just shift one to the side, not like up and down. If you've got your borders running sides next to each other, they overlap each other, and then just shift a little bit, and you'll let the under border, the border on the bottom will become the fill in of the piece on top. You might also, I think, be able to use just a straight strip. You just have to do some measurements. So play around with it a little bit, just use cardstock, and then you'll be able to kind of figure out what's the best way to back that border. Okay, so I'm gonna stick, this one though, I am gonna stick using Ancient Key across the whole piece. But we're gonna start and we're gonna build this from the base up. So our base piece here, you can see, is one of that ivory leaf paper, and we're going to use our decorative trimmer. Okay, before we dive into this one though, I'm going to do a quick thing because as much as I love the decorative trimmer, one of the things that I hear most often that is the most frustrating, and I agree with you on it, is measuring with the decorative trimmer. Okay, so for this particular piece, what I want you to know is, well, it's a general tip on the decorative trimmer. I'm going to take mine apart, maybe, so you guys can see. That's the part I don't like about it, is it's really hard to show you guys the measurements. There we go. Okay. I want you to think of the decorative trimmer just like your regular trimmer. Our regular trimmer, here's our cut line. Our 0 is right here at our cut line, and we have a little bit of measurements over here to the right. We can come all the way to 1 3/4 inches to the right of our cut line, the right of our 0. We then have all of this room over here to the left of our 0 that we can come clear out here to 16 inches. Okay, so we are able to measure both sides of 0, with 0 being the cut line here. The decorative trimmer is similar, except for we have 2 cut lines. The swell edge is our true 0. We can come out, the one that you see here is showing 1 inch to the right of the swell cut line, and every other measurement you see coming clear out here to 10 inches is to the left of the swell cut. So wavy, we're not going to worry about. We are most concerned with swell. So in this step 1 for hidden key, I talk about coming to 2.5 inches. So we see here, here's 1 inch, there's 2 inch, and then we're going to find the 1/2 inch mark, which is right here between 2 and 3, and that's where we're going to line our paper up. So I'm going to snap my pieces back in place. I'm going to grab my ivory paper. I'm going to feed it in from the right until I get to that 2.5. 2.5. I always double check. Measure twice, cut once. All right. Now, if you don't like to cut that way, the other way you could have done it is you feed it in from the left, cut off that little sliver, establish that cut piece, and then you would come in here and measure 2.5 inches over from the swell that you cut. That is one way, definitely totally acceptable to do. All right, so now we've got our base border piece. It's 2.5 inches wide using that swell edge of the decorative trimmer. Now we're going to go ahead and cut a ancient key, punch an ancient key with our navy cardstock. And again, I need to make sure that I've got a straight edge here. I don't know. I sometimes lose track of what I've punched, what I haven't punched. There's my my punched piece here. I'm going to go ahead and trim this. I only really need the top half, so I'm just going to trim this fairly close to this edge. I don't want it to become a really unwieldy piece, so I am going to cut it maybe just 1 1/8 inches. I want to go ahead and leave a border here so that I'm not dealing with a lot of flappy pieces. But I really don't care what's on the other side. I am only focused on this outside edge. I shouldn't go too far with my piece of paper here. We need to back this piece. The second step within step 2 is we are going to cut a 3/4 inch piece. I said to cut to 1 inch, and that really probably should be closer to 1 1/8 inches. Regardless, you just need to make sure that you know, you have that nice outer edge. And then we're going to use a 1 inch strip of tan paper. So I'm going to cut it 1 by 12. It doesn't even have to truly be 1 inch. You could cut it back to 3/4 of an inch. I'll stick with 1 inch because that's in my handout. I want to make sure I've got the back side of my border. There's my back side. I'm going to apply some repositionable adhesive to the back of my border. And again, I want to make sure my brown shows through. So my brown has to be the side or the tan that goes down towards the and then there we go. I just love Ancient Key. It is such a lovely border. The one thing I will caution you though, when you are using something like Ancient Key, running your hand along the edge, you may pick up those little pieces. So just be careful. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and trim a 3/4 inch strip of, oh, sorry, I've got to finish. I didn't even finish step 2. This piece is going to attach to my border, and I want about 1/4 inch from the bottom of my swell to the edge of my punched border. So it's a rough estimate. You don't have to get out your ruler. You just want to make sure overall that you are straight. So use your trimmer to help you do that. And then you want roughly 1/4 inch between the two. You will have some flexibility when you put on the very last piece. You have a little bit of flexibility, but we don't want to go much more than 1/4 inch just because of the spacing. Lining this up, I'm lining my base piece up on my cutting mat. And then using my cutting mat to help me line up this piece. Because apparently I'm struggling with straight today. There we go. Okay. Now we are going to go ahead and move on to step 3. Step 2 had like parts A, B, and C. Step 3, we're going to trim a 3/4 inch piece of owl paper using our trimmer. The blue owl, I am going to come over here 3/4 inch. it will get placed on this piece so that I am covering, this is where you want to cover up. You want to determine how much of your design you're going to cover up. I am coming just below, well, you can see here, I want to see this entire part of the key. So I am going to put my paper so that it covers right along that edge. You can see where that gap is. I'm going to cover up that gap, but just covering the gap. I'm going to let the rest of that cardstock show through. Some of these adjustments, if you're using different tools, you may have some adjustments to make. All right. Now, next I need to go ahead and we're going to trim a 12 by 1 or a 1/2 inch strip of the striped paper, which is the back side of the tan. It's a 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch is that first solid line on to the right of the trimmer, or the cut line. Now what I want to do here is, before I attach this to these pieces, what I'm going to actually do is come in and use my sticker. I'm going to use this sticker, this wavy sticker. You don't have to use a sticker. You could use, I don't know, some other punched element, a laser cut border. What I want to do is you can see here, I've got a wave. I want the lowest point of my wave to, I don't want to see my white or my striped paper coming above that, but I do want the rest of my border to cover that. So I'm going to match up the top of my stripe with the deepest part of this wave. Really what I'm trying to do is, I don't want a ton of that striped paper showing. I just want hints of it. Okay. So that's my goal, is I'm just covering up so that the valley of my piece here is really hitting the top of the paper. On the back here, probably actually would have been easier maybe to just apply the paper to the back. I don't know. You learn little bits as you're working through this. You're putting the first one together, goes through, I put the first set together, then I write my directions, and then as I'm assembling it the second time, I realize, oh, I probably could have done that instead. I'm going to go ahead and put some additional adhesive on the back, on the paper. I have a little bit of the sticker showing through, but not a ton. And then this gets added. And my goal here is, I am going to line this up where I want my striped paper to be. My sticker should cover up my blue as well. And there we go. And then what I did here, this is the basic border, go any direction. In your embellishment pack, you have these tags. There's 2 of these tags. It is so easy to use a pair of scissors and cut off the tag part if you don't want the tag part. I gotta trim that one up a little bit. I just cut off both sides to make a cute little rectangle that held the All You Need Is Love embellishment. So that's a easy peasy if you don't want to deal. Sometimes I never know what to do with those pieces if I don't put like something through it that you know, if you don't weave a piece of paper or something through it to make it look like it's like tied on, it can, sometimes to me, it can look a little awkward. It was just easy just to chop them off. Then I didn't have to answer that question of how do I make it look like it should be attached. Okay, so that was the hidden key border. Last border we're going to make is the River Waves border. As I said, this one I am using the River Waves border punch. I think on my original National Scrapbook Day borders from 2020, I used the ribbon, or not the ribbon, it was the lace trim. That was it, lace trim border punch. It just, you know, that's a really lovely one. It's a little more feminine. Even in the name, you can tell lace trim is definitely has a feminine aesthetic to it. But I wanted something that was going to be, it could really go either direction. River Waves is just nice. Like I said, it's kind of pattern neutral, meaning the pattern is very repetitive. It doesn't really draw your eye, but does give you some additional detail, a sense of movement here. So that is lovely. This border comes together pretty easy. We're going to start off by cutting ourselves a 2-inch base out of the striped paper. If you hadn't figured it out, the striped paper is the showcase in this. Love this stripe. That soft orange with the navy and the cream is lovely. 2 inches. Next up, we're going to go ahead and trim a 1 5/8 inch piece of the blue owl paper, the leaves and owls. 1 5/8. Again, we're coming just past that, past that piece. You could probably cut this if you don't like the 1/8. You could probably come in and cut this at 1 1/2. You'll just have a little bit, actually you would need to cut it closer to 1 3/4. This is all about, the goal here is just to let a little bit of this, we're going to use a little bit of this blue to shine through. We are told to adhere this to the blue, the stripe paper. It's going to go right down the middle. We should have, I don't know, it's about 1/8 of an inch, or it's a little more than 1/8 of an inch on either side, technically 3/16 of an inch, but just do your best to get it centered down the middle. Next up, we're going to cut a 1 1/2 inch strip from the white ivory paper. 1 1/2. This is a very basic layering, just cutting strips of different widths, and then you layer them right down the middle. I mean, I see even now, the colors are super pretty. I totally just could have done, if you like the owls, that could have come in right there with that stripe showing through. They gave us some really nice stripes in this Croptoberfest kit, but really none of the layouts featured the stripes. I did show the alternative on the project recipe kit if you wanted to. Now, when you put this 1/2 inch, this piece on here, we literally have slivers of that blue showing on the other side. That is a little bit by design. I had a little bit more in my sample here. This one I did have, it's pretty narrow. I probably could have cut that a little bit shy of a 1 1/2 inch. If you are following along and you want to, in your notes on step 3, where it says trim a 1 1/2 inch strip, I would actually maybe just trim a shy 1 1/2 inch strip. Shy meaning you're not quite all the way to 1 1/2, but rather than me telling you cut a 1 7/16 inch strip, that's going to give you a little bit more width there if you want more of that blue coming through. Next up, we need to go ahead and punch the River Waves border with our navy cardstock. Navy, this punch does use the little triangle In case you don't know what these punches, because we have a highly repetitive punch or design, they give us that triangle. I'm going to line up the triangle. I use the triangle. There's a triangle on there. I don't know if you can see it. There it is. I line that triangle up, but after I line the triangle, I double check to make sure my pattern is lined up. The triangle just tells me how far to move side to side. Then I line up my pattern. So there, my triangle's in the right spot. Now I'm double checking my pattern and keep progressing on. Okay, so there's okay. And let's see, we are going to adhere this border so that our river edge, our river wave is 1/4 inch from our right edge. That's not quite halfway down the middle, but it's close. I'm going to put on some adhesive. And I want it to be 1/4 inch from that outside edge of my ivory. Okay, so here's my ivory edge. It's actually lining up really well on my trimmer. I can see or my cutting mat. I can find where that 1/4 inch is the spacing, and I'm going to go ahead and I want that. I want the wave. So there is a wave, obviously to river waves, there is a wave. I want the peak of those waves to be 1/4 inch away from my edge over there. So I got to convince my piece to go on here straight. Okay, I think the issue is normally I work horizontally. Actually, I don't really work. I just eyeball it. I'm just going to do that because it's not being nice to me today. Roughly 1/4 inch. Okay. Now, the next piece, step 5, we're going to use our decorative trimmer again. We're using the swell edge. I just dropped my trimmer on the floor. I have carpet though, which is probably a good thing. I keep telling myself, oh, I would love to have tile and hard surface, and I will, but there's probably been a lot of tools that have been spared a disastrous fate by hitting carpet rather than tile. So maybe what I need is I'll get tile eventually, but I will have to have a rug. I'll have to have a drop zone that has a rug. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to feed the tan paper in from the right side until it meets the 3/4 inch mark. So remember, we talked about this before in our last border. Our last one, we came all the way over to 2.5. This time we're going to come to 3/4 inch. 3/4 inch past or to the left of our 0, which is our swell cut line. And I can see that it's actually 3 squares. Each square is 1/4 inch. And we'll go ahead, I need to use the tan paper, which is the other side of my stripe. I'm going to feed this in. I'm coming to that 3/4 inch. I'm going to take a Sharpie and start marking these. Now, 3/4, it's really hard to hold when you're closing it. So what you can do is just come out here to the outside edge. I can feel where that is. Like here, I'm not on the trimmer. I move my way over. Oh, there it is. There's my trimmer. And I can close it. I'm lined up, hold that in place, and just pull this down with my left hand. I don't have a very big piece here. That thin strip is what I want. And then if everything works out well, this is going to just get mounted on flush with the ivory at the bottom. I still want to see the blue. It's going to be flush with the ivory. I'm going to use some repositionable adhesive on this one. And it's going to line up flush with that ivory at the bottom. It's going to, the valley of my swell should be just kissing the edge of that river waves punch. And so there you do. You see a little bit of that peekaboo effect with there. And again, we come into how I embellish this. I use the owl punch with some blue. I was making a bunch of owls, so I had already punched a piece of an owl out of one of the blue tonals. Is actually from the accessory paper pack, but you could punch it out of, if you want to go with that mid-tone blue, you could punch it out of your paper here with the owl punch. And then your Hoot is a sticker. And then I have it paired with 2 feathers out of the embellishment pack. And again, I came in and I squared off the tag to get rid of that just kind of awkward tag edge for my design. I'm sure if you wanted to leave that as a tag, you definitely could do so. For my purpose, I just chopped it off. All right, so there we go. That is all 4 borders. I do have one little correction to make on that, that handout. Just for those, if you joined us late and you already got it printed, the correction that I need to make is going to be on Ancient Key Border Step 3. We do not want to trim a 1.5 inch piece of the ivory leaf paper. We're going to trim a 1 1/4. I will go ahead and get that updated, reloaded up to my blog. And so if you haven't already printed it, you'll be able to print it with the correction. And I will make that update on the river waves, where we talk about just that shy, just a little bit short of 1.5 inch. Gives yourself a little bit more of the blue to show through. We don't want a ton more to show through, but just a little bit. So here are the 4 borders that we've created today. If you've made them, I would love to see them. If you are making them out of another collection, they would be super cute to see. And so I will, definitely post those. I did not put a hashtag on the handout. I'll probably add that as well. And it will be able to see, the hashtag would be Scrapbook Live 0927. A couple questions. So if you actually go to my blog, the link there, you'll be able to see the NSD borders. There is a link back to those NSD borders with the directions for the borders themselves. I'm going to tell you, my directions aren't fantastic. They're pretty basic, but if you are wanting to create the ones I did with the strawberry borders, you could definitely give it a shot if you've got the NSD from 2020 available, and maybe you still have some pieces left over, or want to try using those tools, you could do so. This particular video, once I get done here, I will finish up the recording. I upload it to YouTube, and you'll be able to catch the recording there. Once we wrap it all up, Facebook will also still have the live version where you can just come back and rewatch the live from the beginning. But sometimes I think YouTube makes it a little bit easier to watch. I don't know. I struggle sometimes with watching videos on Facebook because it doesn't always, I don't know. I just struggle there. So I always like to catch things on YouTube later if I really needed to go back and watch them. But that'll get uploaded a little bit later this afternoon. YouTube sometimes is a little slow processing. I am not live on YouTube right now. That is not within my current capabilities with the program I'm using. I'm using some free software because I liked the price. But it does not allow me, I can only stream to one platform at a time, and I have prioritized Facebook because that's where I know a lot of people are, and so you'll catch it later on YouTube. So I think that's about all I have to share with you for this. Like I said, I'll have that updated handout on the blog. Friday is going to be a preview Friday in terms of Creative Memories news. Friday will be a preview Friday. We will have all of the stuff that's coming for the beginning of October. Monday will be launch. I am expecting that we will see the Christmas collection. We also should see 3 new packs of Totally Tonal papers if you've been enjoying those. And then, of course, the corresponding stickers. And I think, a couple other little things that are more on the advisor side that'll be kind of fun. Just the gifts and things like that. All those little things that as advisors we can use to thank and spoil our customers. So advisors, be on the lookout for that. Okay, I do not have anything else. I'll be back next week with another Scrapbook Live on Wednesday. I'm not sure what the project will be, but it will be a page. We do the layouts, the borders are the last Wednesday of the month. So next week will be the first Wednesday of October, crazy enough, and we will have that going on there. All right, everybody, take care. Have a wonderful, hopefully a dry week, or if you need rain, hopefully you're getting the rain, but hopefully you're getting the weather that you hope for. Nothing too crazy out there. Maybe if you want a thunderstorm to kind of get your mood or whatever, that you get all of that lovely stuff. So take care. I will see you next week. Thanks so much for watching.